The vote counter climbed higher with each passing second. Peter Hayes watched the numbers change on the massive display screen that dominated the Galactic Council chamber. Red lights flashed across the board as species after species cast their votes. Each red light meant war. Each red light meant they had chosen to fight humanity. Lieutenant Martinez stood beside him at the human delegation podium. Her hands gripped the metal railing so tight her knuckles turned white. She leaned close and whispered, "Sir, they are actually doing it. Every single one of them is voting yes." Peter nodded but said nothing. His eyes moved across the circular chamber, studying each alien representative in turn. They clicked their mandibles together in what passed for satisfaction among their kind. The crystalline glowed bright orange, a sign of their aggressive mood. Even the usually peaceful had voted for war, their multiple eyes blinking in unison as they transmitted their choice. The chamber itself was built to intimidate. It stretched 300 feet across, with seating arranged in rising tiers that made the center floor feel like a pit. Humanity's podium sat in that pit, surrounded on all sides by species that had walked among the stars for thousands of years before humans even invented the wheel. The architecture was meant to remind newer species of their place. Peter had always found it amusing. Ambassador of the Empire rose to his full height. His exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber lights as he addressed the assembly. His words came through the translation device in sharp, clipped tones. The human menace has spread unchecked for too long. They claim systems without proper authorization. They expand their military without council oversight. They refuse to submit their fleet compositions for review as all member species must do. This behavior cannot continue. Other species murmured their agreement. Peter could hear their voices overlapping through the translation system, creating a strange harmony of different languages all saying the same thing. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity was aggressive. Humanity needed to be stopped. The vote counter hit 100%. Every species had cast their ballot. Every single vote was read. The declaration of war was unanimous. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. All eyes turned to Peter Hayes, waiting for his response. Looked at him, her face pale. She had been with the diplomatic service for only 3 years. This was her first major crisis. Peter had been doing this job for much longer. He touched his throat, activating his translation collar, and stepped forward to address the council. His voice carried across the chamber with perfect clarity. "I want to make sure I understand correctly. This vote is final. There will be no reconsideration, no period for additional negotiation." His mandibles clicked rapidly. "The vote is final, human. Your species will submit to council authority or you will be forced to submit. We have been patient with your violations. That patience has ended." "I see," Peter said. He looked around the chamber one more time, making eye contact with as many representatives as he could. Some looked eager. Others looked grim but determined. None of them looked uncertain. They had made their choice. Peter reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small communication device. It was human-made, not connected to the council's network. He pressed a button on its side and spoke 2 words, "Protocol Odyssey." His eyes went wide. She knew what those words meant. Every human in the galaxy knew what those words meant. They had been waiting 50 years to hear them. The alien representatives began to murmur among themselves, confused by this action. Peter put the device back in his pocket and allowed himself something he had not done in years of diplomatic service. He smiled. Not a polite diplomatic smile, but a real one. A smile that showed teeth. "Ambassador Hayes, what is the meaning of this?" demanded. "You were given the opportunity to address this council. Instead, you play with your primitive communication toys." Peter's smile grew wider. "I was making a phone call. You see, there are a lot of people who have been waiting for this moment. I needed to let them know it has finally arrived." "What moment?" asked Counselor of their crystalline form dimming slightly with confusion. "This moment," Peter said, spreading his arms wide to encompass the entire chamber. "The moment when you made the worst mistake in the history of galactic civilization. The moment when you declared war on humanity." His laugh came out as a series of harsh clicks. "You think we fear you? Your species has been in space for barely 50 years. We have conquered worlds when your ancestors were still living in caves. Your military is a fraction of the size of ours. Your technology is inferior. Your experience is non-existent. What mistake have we made?" Peter walked to the edge of the podium platform. He looked up at the towering ranks of alien representatives surrounding him. His voice remained calm, almost conversational, as he spoke his next words. "The mistake you made was believing what we wanted you to believe. The mistake you made was thinking we were weak. The mistake you made was assuming that because we are young, we are foolish." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But your biggest mistake was thinking that we joined this council seeking your protection." The murmuring in the chamber grew louder. Peter could see confusion spreading among the delegates. They had expected rage or fear or desperate pleading. They had not expected this calm confidence. "Then why did you join?" Counselor asked. Peter's smile never wavered. "We joined seeking targets. We needed to know who you were, where you lived, how you fought, what you feared. We needed to understand your weaknesses, and you gave us 50 years to learn everything we needed to know." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the overlapping voices. Security forces moved toward the human podium. Peter raised his voice, cutting through the noise. "You wanted this war. You voted for it, every single one of you. You declared it unanimous. Well, congratulations. You got exactly what you asked for." He looked directly at. "I have spent 5 decades playing the role of the confused newcomer, the primitive species trying to learn from their betters. Do you know how hard it is to pretend to be stupid for 50 years?" Had recovered from her shock. She stood straight beside him now, no longer gripping the railing for support. She had trained for this moment just like everyone else in the human military and diplomatic corps. "You are insane," said. "You cannot possibly win this war." Peter touched his communication device one more time. "That is the second call I needed to make. I just sent the authorization codes to every human fleet commander in the galaxy. By now, they are receiving their orders. The orders they have been waiting 50 years to receive." He turned to, "Lieutenant, I believe our business here is concluded." "Yes, sir," she replied. Together they walked toward the exit. Security forces blocked their path, but Peter simply looked at them. "You declared war. That makes us enemy combatants, but we still have diplomatic immunity until we leave this station. I suggest you check your own laws before you do something you will regret." The security forces hesitated, looking to their superiors for guidance. In that moment of confusion, Peter walked past them. As they reached the chamber doors, Peter turned back one final time. He gave the assembled council a small bow, mocking in its politeness. "Good luck," he said. "You are going to need it." The doors closed behind them, leaving the council chamber in chaos. The war had begun, and Peter Hayes was finally done pretending to be something he was not. It was finally time. 50 years earlier, Captain Jake sat in the command chair of the exploration vessel Liberty. His crew had been tracking the alien signal for 3 months, following it deeper into unexplored space. The signal was not a random broadcast. It was deliberate, organized, clearly intelligent in origin. "Captain, we are picking up multiple signatures ahead," said Lieutenant Commander from the sensor station. "At least 40 distinct vessels in a formation pattern. They are definitely military." Jake leaned forward. "Are we being detected?" "Negative, sir. Our stealth systems are holding. They have no idea we are here." Jake allowed himself a small smile. Earth had spent 10 years developing those stealth systems. using theories that human scientists had worked out long before they ever detected alien life. The investment had paid off. They could watch without being watched. Begin recording everything. Ship designs, energy signatures, communication frequencies. I want a complete profile of their capabilities. The crew worked in silence, their instruments gathering data on the alien fleet. This was the moment Earth had been preparing for since they first detected signs of intelligent life beyond their solar system. Not first contact, but first reconnaissance. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa reviewed the data from Jake's mission. She sat in a conference room deep beneath the surface, surrounded by screens showing information from a dozen different human ships scattered across space. Each ship had been carefully tracking alien movements for months. Each ship had orders to observe but never engage. "They call themselves the Galactic Council," said Colonel Price, head of military intelligence. He stood at the front of the room, pointing to a star map that showed Council territory. "They control approximately 40% of this region of space. They have been spacefaring for at least 12,000 years. By every measure, they should be far more advanced than we are." "Should be," Lisa repeated, "but they are not." Shook his head. "Their technology is good, but it is old, very old. They stopped innovating centuries ago. They found systems that worked and never improved them. Their military doctrine has not changed in over 1,000 years. They are powerful, but they are predictable." Lisa studied the star map. She had been planning for this moment her entire career. Earth needed to join the galactic community, but they needed to do it on their own terms. That meant understanding their future neighbors before making contact. "What about their expansion patterns?" she asked. "Slow and methodical. They claim new systems only after thorough surveys that can take decades. They avoid conflict whenever possible, preferring to absorb new species through diplomacy and economic pressure." "In other words, they are soft." Nodded. "Compared to humans. Yes, Admiral, they are very soft." Lisa made her decision. "Initiate first contact protocols, but we do it my way. We approach them as a young species seeking guidance. We play the role of the eager student. We make them think we are grateful for their help. While we study them, while we learn everything about them, their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears. By the time they realize what we really are, it will be too late." The first contact happened 3 months later. Jake's Liberty was chosen for the honor. His ship approached a council patrol with all weapons powered down, broadcasting peaceful greetings in every language Earth had managed to decode from council transmissions. The council ship surrounded Liberty with obvious caution. Jake played his role perfectly, acting surprised and slightly overwhelmed when the aliens made contact. He followed every instruction they gave, appearing eager to please and perhaps a bit intimidated by their obvious technological superiority. Ambassador himself came aboard Liberty to meet with Jake and his crew. The representative walked through the ship with barely concealed contempt, examining Earth's technology with the air of a teacher grading a particularly poor student's work. "Your faster-than-light drive is functional but inefficient," said. "Your weapons are primitive. Your life support systems are adequate but wasteful. You have much to learn." Jake nodded humbly. "We are grateful for any guidance the Council can provide. Earth wishes only to join the galactic community and learn from those with greater experience." His mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "The Council welcomes all peaceful species. You will be assigned a mentor who will help your people understand Council law and proper behavior." What did not know was that hidden throughout Liberty were sensors recording every detail of his biology, his technology, even the composition of the air he preferred to breathe. By the time he left the ship, Earth had enough data to build weapons specifically designed to kill. The next 5 decades followed the same pattern. Earth sent diplomats who acted confused by galactic politics. They sent military officers who seemed impressed by Council technology. They signed treaties that appeared to limit human expansion, but were written with carefully hidden loopholes that lawyers had spent months crafting. Peter Hayes joined the diplomatic service in the 10th year of contact. He had been a special forces commander before that, leading missions into hostile territory where reading the enemy correctly meant the difference between life and death. Those skills served him well in the council chamber. He learned to speak slowly, as if struggling with the translation technology. He learned to ask for clarification on matters he already understood perfectly. He learned to lose arguments gracefully, making the council representatives feel superior while quietly nodding which arguments they responded to and which ones made them uncomfortable. In year 20, Admiral Lisa authorized the construction of humanity's first real war fleet. The ships were built in secret, far from council space, using designs that incorporated everything humans had learned about alien technology. On paper, Earth claimed to have only 300 military vessels. In reality, they had 3,000, with more under construction every month. The weapons were particularly impressive. Human scientists had studied Council shield technology and found weaknesses that the aliens themselves had never noticed. They had analyzed Council armor and designed projectiles that could punch through it. They had mapped Council sensor systems and built stealth technology that could fool them. But perhaps more importantly, they studied how Council species thought. They were aggressive but predictable, following battle strategies that had not changed in. They were powerful but slow to adapt to new situations. They were peaceful by nature and would fold quickly under sustained pressure. By year 30, Earth had colonies on 40 worlds. The Council thought these were simple farming settlements, barely defended and economically insignificant. In truth, each colony was a fortress disguised as a farm. Each settlement had underground military bases, concealed shipyards and weapons batteries that could defend against a full fleet assault. Human merchant ships traveled throughout Council space, trading goods and gathering information. Each ship had military-trained crew who mapped defense installations and recorded fleet movements. Each trade mission was really an intelligence operation. Peter Hayes rose through the ranks of the diplomatic service, eventually becoming Earth's primary ambassador to the Council. He perfected his act over the years, becoming the image of a well-meaning but slightly out of his depth human trying his best to understand complex galactic politics. The Council representatives grew to like him. They thought he was harmless. They spoke freely in his presence, discussing things they would never have shared with someone they perceived as a threat. Peter remembered every word. In year 45, Admiral Lisa held another meeting in the same underground conference room where she had planned first contact. The wall screens now showed complete tactical maps of all Council space. Every major military installation was marked. Every fleet position was known. Every defensive weakness was documented. "We could win a war today," Colonel Price said. He was older now, his hair gray, but his mind remained sharp. "We have the ships, the weapons, the intelligence. We know everything about them." Lisa nodded. "But we wait. We need them to start it. We need them to be the aggressors. That way, when we win, when we take our place as equals in this galaxy, no one can claim we were the villains." "How much longer?" "Not long. They grow more nervous about our expansion every year. They see us as a threat they need to contain. Soon, very soon, they will move against us. And when they do, we will be ready." 5 years later, Peter Hayes stood in the Council chamber and watched the vote counter climb to 100%. 50 years of preparation. 50 years of pretending. 50 years of being underestimated. He touched his communication device and spoke the words that would end the deception. Protocol Odyssey. Across the galaxy, human commanders received their orders. The hunting party had been spotted. Now it was time to show them who the real predators were. The Council had declared war. They thought they were putting down an upstart species. They were about to learn They had awakened something they should have destroyed when they first had the chance. But they had missed that chance. They had missed it 50 years ago when they welcomed humanity into their community and taught them everything they needed to know to destroy them. Commander Daniel Brooks received the Protocol Odyssey authorization, while his battle group was pretending to conduct routine patrol exercises near the border. His 12 ships had been playing the role of a training squadron for the past 6 months, running simple drills that made them look inexperienced and poorly coordinated. They had been watching them the entire time, gathering intelligence on human military capabilities. Daniel had made sure they saw exactly what he wanted them to see: slow response times, sloppy formations, ships that seemed to struggle with basic maneuvers. Now the authorization came through, and the act was over. All ships battle stations, Daniel ordered. Activate full combat systems, drop the training protocols. Around him, his bridge crew moved with sudden precision that would have shocked any council observer. These were not trainees. They were veterans, every one of them, chosen specifically for this mission. The clumsy exercises had been torture for them, going against every instinct of their training. Now they could finally fight properly. "Sir, fleet is approaching," reported Lieutenant Amy Carter from sensors. 43 vessels in standard attack formation. They think they are responding to a simple training group. They are about to learn otherwise. Weapons arm all systems. Navigation execute attack pattern Sierra 7. The human ships suddenly moved with speed and coordination that should have been impossible for vessels of their size. They scattered from their loose formation into a precise attack pattern, each ship taking a position calculated to maximize their combined firepower while minimizing their exposure to enemy weapons. The fleet tried to adjust, but they were following a battle doctrine written 1,000 years ago. They had trained for formations and tactics that humans had studied and learned to counter decades before. Every move they made, Daniel and his commanders had already predicted. "Fire," Daniel ordered. Human weapons lit up the darkness of space. The projectiles were not energy weapons like the Council used. They were solid rounds, accelerated to incredible speeds, coated with materials specifically designed to penetrate shields. The shields had been built to stop energy weapons. They were nearly useless against kinetic impacts. 6 ships exploded in the first volley. The others scattered, their formation breaking as panic spread through their command structure. They had expected an easy victory against inexperienced humans. Instead, they were being torn apart. "Enemy is attempting to retreat," Amy reported. "Do not let them. I want every ship disabled or destroyed. No intelligence can reach their command about our real capabilities. Not yet." The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, 43 warships were either destroyed or captured. Daniel's battle group had suffered minor damage to 2 vessels and 0 casualties. It was the kind of victory ratio that should have been impossible. But it was happening all across the galaxy. Captain Miller led a task force to liberate a human mining colony that Council forces had seized in the opening hours of the war. The Council had sent an occupation force of 30 ships, thinking it would be more than enough to hold a simple mining operation. They had not known that the mining colony was actually a military base with underground hangars holding 2 full squadrons of attack craft. When task force arrived, they coordinated with the ground forces in a way that caught the Council completely off guard. The attack craft launched from hidden tunnels, hitting the Council fleet from below while ships struck from above. The Council ships tried to defend in 2 directions at once and failed at both. Within an hour, the colony was free and 3,000 human civilians were safe. Admiral Lisa watched the battle reports flow into her command center on Earth. Every engagement was going according to plan. Better than plan, in many cases. The Council's military was exactly as rigid and predictable as 50 years of study had indicated. "Ma'am, "We are receiving surrender requests from 3 minor council species," reported Colonel Price. "They want to negotiate separate peace terms." "We made it clear. The council voted for war as a unified body. They will face the consequences as a unified body. No separate deals. That is going to make some of them desperate." "Good, desperate opponents make mistakes." She pulled up a tactical display showing the entire war front. Human forces were advancing on all major theaters. Council fleets were in retreat or destroyed. Their supply lines were being cut by human raiders who struck from nowhere and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. It was exactly the kind of warfare that humans had perfected over thousands of years on Earth. Hit and run, guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare. The council species had spent so long fighting each other in formal fleet actions that they had forgotten how to deal with an enemy who refused to fight fair. Dr. Helen Wright sat in her laboratory on Earth's lunar station, preparing the broadcast that would shake the council to its core. She was not a soldier, but her work was about to become a weapon more powerful than any military assault. The broadcast went out on every major communication channel in council space. Helen's face appeared on screens across 100 worlds as she began to speak. "My name is Dr. Helen Wright. I am a medical researcher from Earth. For the past 30 years, I have been working on cures for 3 diseases that affect many council species. The red wasting that kills thousands of every year, the neural decay that cripples elderly, the carapace rot that spreads through hive cities." She paused, letting that sink in. "We have had cures for these diseases for over a decade. Complete cures. We were waiting for the right moment to share them with you. We were going to offer them as gifts, as proof of Earth's friendship and our desire to be true partners in the galactic community." Another pause. "You declared war on us instead. So now we offer you a choice. Surrender, accept our terms for peace, and these cures will be freely distributed to all who need them. Continue fighting, and millions of your people will die from diseases that no longer need to kill them. The choice is yours." The broadcast ended. Within hours, protests began on council worlds. Citizens who had supported the war suddenly questioned whether fighting humanity was worth watching their loved ones die from curable diseases. Some species sent secret communications to Earth, begging for the cures regardless of the war. Earth's response was consistent: surrender or nothing. Major Jennifer Blake commanded a small force defending a human research station when a council fleet arrived with overwhelming numbers. On paper, she had no chance of winning. She had 8 ships. They had 70. But Jennifer understood something the council did not. Space combat was not just about numbers. It was about positioning, timing, and using your environment. The research station orbited a gas giant with 17 moons. Jennifer positioned her ships in the moon system, using the gravitational fields and orbital mechanics to her advantage. When the council fleet approached, she did not meet them in open space. She led them on a chase through the moons. The council ships were faster, but they were also larger and less maneuverable. Jennifer's smaller vessels could thread between moons and through orbital paths that the enemy could not follow. She set traps, using the moon's gravity to slingshot her ships into unexpected attack angles. The battle became a game of 3-dimensional chess played at incredible speeds. Every time the council thought they had her cornered, she found a new escape route and turned it into an ambush point. Her crews worked with precision born from thousands of hours of training in exactly this kind of environment. After 6 hours, the council fleet, they had lost 23 ships trying to capture a station defended by 8. Jennifer had lost none. The victory became legendary among human forces, an example of how tactics and creativity could overcome superior numbers. Peter Hayes broadcast a message from Earth that was transmitted throughout council space. He stood in what appeared to be a simple office, looking calm and reasonable as he spoke. The Galactic Council declared war on humanity, believing we were weak. You thought our technology was inferior. You thought our experience was limited. You thought you could force us to submit to your authority. In all of these assumptions, you were wrong. He gestured to a display behind him showing human ships in battle. We are not primitive. We are not weak. We are not confused children who need your guidance. We are a species that survived and thrived on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We climbed to the top of our food chain by being smarter, more adaptable, and more willing to do whatever survival required. The display changed to show Council ships in retreat. You have been fighting wars the same way for 1,000 years. We studied those wars. We learned your tactics, your strategies, your weaknesses. We spent 50 years preparing for this moment. Every treaty we signed, every agreement we made, every diplomatic gesture we offered was part of a plan to understand you completely. Peter leaned forward slightly. You wanted this war. You voted for it. Every species, every representative, unanimous agreement. You got what you wanted. Now you are learning that what you wanted was the worst decision your civilization has ever made. He straightened. We are willing to accept your surrender at any time, but understand this. We will not return to the old system where you dictate terms and expect us to obey. When this war ends, humanity will have an equal voice in galactic affairs, not a junior voice, not a probationary voice, an equal voice backed by equal strength. That is not negotiable. The broadcast ended. Across Council space, governments fell into chaos as they realized the truth. They had not declared war on a weak newcomer. They had declared war on a predator that had been studying them for 50 years, waiting for exactly this moment. The war was barely a month old, and already the Council was losing. Their fleets were in retreat. Their supply lines were cut. Their civilian populations were demanding peace. And Earth had barely committed half of its real military strength. The hunters had become the hunted, and they were learning a lesson that humanity had always known. The most dangerous predator is not the one with the biggest teeth. It is the one smart enough to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Commander Kate Phillips stared at the tactical display showing the Council shipyard facility ahead. It was one of their primary construction centers, capable of producing 50 warships per month. Intelligence indicated it was operating at full capacity, rushing to build vessels to replace their mounting losses. The facility had to be destroyed. That was not in question. The question was how many of her people would die making it happen. "Ma'am, defense grid analysis is complete," said Lieutenant from Tactical. "They have overlapping shield generators, automated defense platforms, and at least 20 capital ships in dock for repairs. Our approach vectors are all covered by multiple weapon batteries." Kate nodded. She had expected heavy defenses. This facility was too important for the Council to leave vulnerable. "What is our best option?" Hesitated. "Honestly, Commander, there is no good option. We can hit them, but we are going to take significant casualties. I estimate we will lose at least a third of our force getting through their defenses." A third of her force. Kate commanded 18 ships with crews totaling over 4,000 personnel. A third meant at least 1,200 dead, 1,200 people who had families waiting for them back on Earth or the colonies, 1,200 people who trusted her to lead them. "Show me the plan," she said quietly. The attack happened at dawn local time for the shipyard. Kate led the assault personally, her flagship driving straight into the heaviest concentration of defensive fire. Behind her, her other ships followed in a carefully planned sequence, each one drawing fire and creating openings for the next wave. The Council defenses were formidable. Automated platforms tracked human ships with precision, pouring fire into their shields. The capital ships in dock activated their weapons despite being in various states of repair, adding to the storm of destruction. Space itself seemed to burn with the intensity of the battle. Kate's ship shook as enemy fire hammered their shields. Shield strength at 40%, reported the damage control officer. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9. Casualties reported in engineering. Keep moving forward. We need to get close enough for the bombers to launch. Her ship took more hits. The shields collapsed. Armor plating began to fail. But they got close enough. The bomber craft launched from Kate's ship and 3 others, small attack vessels carrying the heavy explosives needed to crack the shipyard's main structure. 2 of Kate's ships exploded before the bombers reached their target. The light from their deaths lit up the tactical display. Kate watched the names disappear from her screen. The Defender, Captain Lewis Grant, commanding. The Vigilant, Captain Sarah, commanding. Both captains were people she had known for years. Both crews were gone in an instant. But the bombers reached the shipyard. Their weapons hit the central reactor complex with perfect precision. The explosion that followed was visible from 3 star systems away as the entire facility tore itself apart. Kate's remaining ships retreated, pursued by the few Council vessels still capable of fighting. They made it out, but the cost had been exactly what predicted. 6 ships lost, over 1,300 dead. The mission was a success. The shipyard would not produce any more Council warships. Kate sat in her quarters after the battle, writing letters to the families of the dead. It was a commander's duty. Each letter was personal, specific to the individual who had died. She remembered their names, their faces, small details about their lives. It took her 2 days to write all 1,300 letters. Captain Foster volunteered for a mission that everyone knew was suicide. The Council was building a massive vessel designed to crack planetary shields and destroy entire worlds from orbit. Intelligence showed it was nearly complete. If it became operational, Earth itself would be at risk. The weapon was in a heavily defended system. Getting close enough to destroy it would require flying through layered defenses that would tear apart any normal attack force. So proposed a different approach. 1 ship, maximum stealth, carrying enough explosives to destroy the weapon before it could be activated. Admiral Lisa approved the mission despite knowing it was a death sentence for and his crew. She made the authorization personally, looking in the eye as she gave the order. You understand that extraction is not possible. Once you go in, you are not coming out. I understand, ma'am. My crew understands. We are doing this anyway. Ship, the Defiant, was stripped down to nothing but engines, stealth systems, and explosives. No weapons, no defensive systems. Every cubic foot of space was dedicated to either getting in undetected or making the biggest explosion possible. The approach took 3 weeks. The Defiant moved through the system using gravity assists and cold running, drifting like a piece of debris. Council sensors swept past them a dozen times without detecting anything, and his crew barely breathed during those close calls. They reached positioned his ship against the weapon's main power core, armed the explosives, and activated the timer. They had 60 seconds to escape. There was no way to escape. They knew that going in. At 50 seconds, sent a final message to Earth. Mission accomplished. Tell our families we did this so they would never have to be afraid. Defiant out. The explosion destroyed and took the Defiant with it. Foster and his entire crew of 43 volunteers were vaporized instantly, but Earth was safe. The Council's chance to threaten human worlds directly was gone. Became a legend. His name was spoken with the kind of reverence reserved for the greatest heroes. But for Admiral Lisa, he was a reminder of the cost of the strategy she had chosen 50 years ago. Every time she saw his name on the memorial wall, she wondered if there had been another way. Major Jennifer Blake was becoming famous for her tactical creativity, but each victory took a toll. She pushed her ships and crews to their limits, asking them to perform maneuvers that bordered on suicidal. They followed her because she got results, but also because she never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. In a battle near Jennifer's command ship lost power while surrounded by enemy vessels. Her crew expected her to surrender. Instead, she used the ship's momentum to ram an enemy cruiser, disabling it while her crew evacuated to other human vessels. She was the last one off her ship, personally ensuring every crew member made it to safety before escaping herself. The Council was beginning to fracture under the pressure. Several minor species sued for peace, willing to accept any terms Earth offered rather than continue fighting. Others doubled down, their leaders refusing to accept that they could lose to a species so young. The Empire became humanity's most determined enemy. Ambassador, who had welcomed humanity to the Council 50 years ago, now led his people in a fight to the death. He made broadcasts calling for total war, demanding that every sacrifice everything to defeat the human threat. Earth's strategy began to shift. The early phase of the war had been about proving their strength. Now they needed to break the Council's will to fight while minimizing further casualties on both sides. Admiral Lisa sat in her command center, surrounded by displays showing the current state of the war. Humanity was winning, but the price was higher than she had hoped. 3,000 dead, 7,000 wounded, 12 ships lost. Those numbers would have been much worse if the Council had been prepared, but they were still hard to accept. "Ma'am, we have a situation," Colonel Price said, approaching her station. "Captain Gregg's fleet has cornered the Council's primary battle group near their capital system. He is requesting permission to engage." Lisa pulled up the tactical display. The Council battle group was massive, over 200 ships. Gregg had 80, but those 80 were the best humanity had, commanded by officers who had been training for this war their entire careers. "Tell Gregg he has authorization to engage, but give him another order too. Offer them surrender terms before he fires a shot. Give them one chance to end this without more bloodshed. And if they refuse, then he destroys them, but at least we will have tried." The message went out. Captain Gregg faced the Council fleet and offered them a choice: surrender now or fight and die. The Council admiral refused. He sent back a message saying the Council would never surrender to primitive humans, no matter the cost. The battle that followed was brutal. The Council ships fought with the desperation of people who knew this was their last stand. They inflicted heavy casualties on human forces, destroying 15 ships and damaging 30 more. But in the end, they were outmatched. When the battle ended, 200 Council ships were either destroyed or disabled. Gregg's fleet controlled the space around the Council's primary worlds. The path was open for Earth to strike at the heart of their government. But Lisa did not give the order to attack. Instead, she sent another message. This one went directly to the Council chambers where this whole war had started. "You have lost, your fleets are defeated, your defenses are broken. We can destroy you if we choose, but we do not want to destroy you. We never wanted this war. You forced it on us and we responded with the strength we had been hiding for 50 years. Now we are offering you one final chance. Surrender, accept peace on equal terms, or watch everything you have built over thousands of years burn. The choice is yours." The message ended. Earth waited for a response. The war had reached its critical moment. What happened next would determine the future of the entire galaxy. The Council chamber looked different now. The same circular room, the same tiered seating, the same architecture designed to intimidate. But the atmosphere had changed completely. Where once there had been confidence and superiority, now there was fear and uncertainty. Peter Hayes walked to the center podium again, just as he had done when the war was declared. Lieutenant Martinez walked beside him, but she was no longer a nervous aide. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had watched her people prove they belonged among the stars. The alien representatives sat in silence. Many of the faces were different from the ones who had voted for war. Some species had replaced their ambassadors. Others had experienced complete government changes as citizens demanded new leadership after the military defeats. But they were all here, waiting to hear what Earth wanted. Peter looked around the chamber slowly, meeting eyes with as many representatives as he could. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm and measured. 3 months ago, you sat in these same seats and voted unanimously for war. You believed humanity was weak. You believed we needed to be controlled. You believed you could force us to submit to your authority. Every single one of you was wrong. He paused, letting the words settle. No one challenged him. No one could. We could destroy you. Our fleets control the space around you. Our weapons could crack your planetary shields. We could do to you what you plan to do to us, but we are not going to do that. Do you know why? Counselor of one of the few representatives who had survived the government changes, spoke quietly. Why? Because we are not conquerors. We never wanted to rule the galaxy. We joined this council seeking partnership, not domination. But partnership requires equality, and you were never going to see us as equals while you believed we were weak. So we showed you our strength. We revealed what we had been hiding for 50 years. We fought your war and we won it. Now, finally, we can talk as equals. Ambassador was no longer the representative. He had been replaced after the destruction of the primary fleet. The new ambassador, a younger named, stood to speak. His voice lacked the arrogance of his predecessor. What are Earth's terms? Peter pulled up a holographic display showing a proposed treaty. First, all Council military forces will withdraw to defensive positions around their core systems. Second, the Council will recognize Earth's claim to all systems we currently occupy. Third, humanity will have an equal vote in all Council decisions, with the same rights and privileges as founding members. Fourth, all Council species will have access to Earth's medical advances, including the disease cures we have developed. The representatives murmured among themselves. The terms were surprisingly generous. They had expected demands for tribute, for territory, for Council worlds to be placed under human occupation. That is all, asked. You want only equality. Equality and honesty. No more games. No more pretending. We are done hiding what we are. You are done pretending you are superior to everyone else. We move forward as partners, or we do not move forward at all. Counselor's crystalline form pulsed with a color that Peter had learned indicated deep thought. You say you prepared for this war for 50 years. You studied us, learned our weaknesses, built weapons designed to defeat us. How can we trust that you will not use that knowledge against us in the future? Peter nodded, acknowledging the valid concern. You cannot trust us, just as we cannot trust you. Trust is not something we are going to achieve in a day or a year or perhaps even a generation. But we can build respect. We can recognize each other's strength. We can understand that we are stronger together than we are as enemies. He gestured to the treaty terms again. We are offering you peace with dignity. You keep your worlds, your governments, your way of life. All we ask is that you accept us as equals and work with us to make this galaxy safer for everyone. Because the truth is, the Council has been failing for a long time. You have grown comfortable, predictable, weak. There are threats out there you have been ignoring. We have seen them. It is time someone took them seriously. The negotiations continued for 3 weeks. Human and Council representatives worked through the details of the treaty, addressing concerns, clarifying language, establishing frameworks for future cooperation. Peter led most of the discussions, with Admiral Lisa and other Earth officials participating remotely. Captain Jake, the man who had made first contact 50 years ago, returned to the Council chambers to help draft the military cooperation agreements. He worked with former enemies to create joint patrol protocols and shared defense strategies. It was strange for him to teach tactics to the same species he had been fighting weeks before, but he did it with professionalism and respect. Commander Daniel Brooks established a training program where human officers would work with Council military personnel. The goal was not to make Council forces fight like humans, but to help them understand different approaches to warfare. In return, Council species shared their own knowledge, their thousands of years of experience in space combat and long-range logistics. Dr. Helen Wright began distributing the promised medical cures. She traveled to Council Worlds personally, working with local scientists to ensure the treatments were properly understood and implemented. She watched as children who would have died from red wasting received the cure and began to recover. The gratitude in their parents' eyes told her the war had been worth it, if only for this moment. Admiral Lisa announced her retirement once the treaty was signed. She had accomplished what she set out to do 50 years ago. Earth was secure, respected, and equal among the stars, but the cost haunted her. She spent her retirement years working with veterans, helping those who had been wounded in body or mind during the war. She never expressed regret for her strategy, but she also never forgot the names of those who died making it work. Lieutenant Martinez became an ambassador herself, assigned to work with younger council species who were watching Earth's example and wondering if they too could challenge the old order. She taught them that strength came in many forms, and that respect had to be earned through action, not granted out of pity. Captain Kate Phillips received recognition for her actions at the shipyard, but she always thought of the 1,300 who did not come home. She kept copies of all the letters she had written to their families, reading them on the anniversary of the battle each year. Her ship now carried a memorial wall with every name, ensuring they would never be forgotten. The story of Captain Foster spread throughout human space and beyond. Other species began to understand what it meant to be human, what it meant to come from a where survival required constant sacrifice. His mission became a symbol not just of human courage, but of their willingness to give everything to protect what they loved. Peter Hayes stood in the council chamber one final time, 6 months after the war had ended. The chamber was full again, but the atmosphere had changed. There was still tension, still uncertainty, but also a growing sense of possibility. This council was built on the idea that older civilizations knew better than younger ones, Peter said. That experience always trumped innovation, that the way things had been done for thousands of years was the way things should always be done. Earth proved that was wrong. We brought new ideas, new tactics, new perspectives. We challenged you, and in doing so, we made this entire community stronger. He looked around the chamber at faces that were becoming familiar. Not friends, perhaps, not yet, but colleagues, partners. When you declared war and I said those words, when I smirked and said it was finally time, I was not gloating. I was relieved. For 50 years we pretended to be something we were not. We played the role of the confused newcomer, the primitive species grateful for your guidance. Every day of that deception wore on us. Every diplomatic smile, every humble nod, every time we accepted your condescension without response, it hurt. Not because we are proud, but because we are honest. We value truth, and we were living a lie. Peter's voice softened. So yes, it was finally time. Time to stop pretending. Time to show you who we really were. Time to fight the war you forced on us and prove that we belonged here not as your students but as your equals. The war is over. The pretending is done. Now, finally, we can be honest with each other, and from that honesty, perhaps we can build something better than what existed before. The council voted on the final treaty. This time, the vote was not unanimous. Some species still harbored resentment, still refused to accept humanity's equality, but the majority voted yes. The treaty was. Earth was recognized as a full member of the Galactic Council with all rights and privileges. As Peter left the chamber for the last time, he looked back at the place where it all began, where the Council had declared war, where humanity had finally stopped hiding. It had finally been time not just for war, but for truth. And in that truth, humanity found their place among the stars. Not as conquerors, not as servants, but as equals earning their seat through strength, strategy, and the willingness to do whatever survival required. The species from the had claimed their place, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.